Assalamu alaikum everyone. My name is Ehsan Rizvi, and today we will be continuing the lecture series this Ramadan of 2022. This series have been brought to you by Babul Ilm Bani Hashim Society of Mississauga, Ontario, this Ramadan of 2022. And the topic of this series has been societal well-being, and we've been talking about how to make sure that we can actually get on the path to self-purification at the community level and not just at the individual level. We've been talking about the concepts related to our relationship with neighbors, community members, how to deal with social networking tools, and how do they impact our lives and our duties towards others. In our last lecture, we talked about modesty and chastity, and we examined how a society where members are observing these concepts are able to make a productive and a safe society for everyone. Today, we're going to also talk about an important concept that has been really emphasized greatly in the teachings of Islam as well, and we've seen that in the life of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam as well. And today's topic is moderation in life. We will be talking about the importance of moderation in everything we do. And we will also try to investigate the negative effects of excessiveness. And finally, we'll try to make sure that we can demonstrate some ways in which we can actually practically implement moderation in our daily lives. So let's get right into it. As always, we'll start with a Quranic verse just to set the context as to what the Islamic teachings are regarding that concept, which is moderation in life. It's the surah is chapter number 25, and it's called Surah Al-Furqan, and verse number 67. And Allah Ta'ala says in this verse, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا أَنفَقُوا لَمْ يُسْرِفُوا وَلَمْ يَقْتُرُوا وَكَانَ بَيْنَ ذَلِكَ قَوَامًا. I'm going to translate it. Those who, when spending, are neither wasteful nor tight-fisted, and moderation lies between these extremes. So again, these are, Allah Ta'ala is actually in this verse describing the qualities of good people, of noble and pious people. And he's actually mentioning that they shouldn't be wasteful or tight-fisted. So the concept of moderation is being emphasized over here. The word that is used for the opposite of moderation is israf, which basically means extravagance. And we'll talk more, and we can see like how the Quran teaches us to maintain moderation. Do not be on the extreme sides, and basically our behavior or action should aim for the right amount in everything we do. Don't avoid too much or too less. So, for example, if you're eating too much food, it's not healthy, right? If you're eating too little, that is also very harmful. So the right balance, we often hear this word of balanced diet, right? That is basically known as moderation. So we want to make sure that we're not on the extremes, but somewhere in the middle. Now, again, the main point is that if you are doing too much of certain thing or too less of certain things, then that could be harmful. right? And when Allah Ta'ala is actually describing the qualities of a mu'min, he says that they're neither extravagant nor too much. Again, he's talking about those two extremes. So, for example, if people are spending money, if they spend too much, that nothing is left for their family, then it's actually damaging and harmful to their family. If folks are spending too little or not at all, then others do not benefit from their money at all. A narration by Hazrat Ali alayhi salam is actually very pertinent. He has said, moderation makes the small grow big. So very uh, deep and insightful narration by Imam Ali. As you can see, there is emphasis on observing moderation. Now, moderation is has so much emphasis that even Imam Zain al-Abidin actually taught us that we should ask Allah for it. Like in Dua Makaram al-Akhlaq, he says, "Oh Allah, bless Muhammad and his family and make me enjoy moderation." So imagine when he is actually talking about the blessings on the Holy Prophet and his family, he talks about moderation, and he talks about in a way that is, he says, like, make me enjoy moderation. So definitely emphasized by our Imam, fourth Imam Zain al-Abidin Islam as well. Now, when you think about moderation, consider yourself consider your life right now. What are some of the actions that you're doing that and try to analyze, is it too much or too little? For example, your anger. Like, can you, if you're having too much anger, you're probably harming someone, or if not, you have that potential to actually harm someone or say something to hurt someone's feelings, right? If you do not have anger at all, so too less, then would you be able to defend yourself? If someone hurts and soils you and all those things, you're not angry at all, you may not be able to defend yourself. Another example could be watching television. So let's say you're watching too much television, that's easy. You're kind of wasting your time and you may not be able to do other chores, and you may not be able to do your homework from school, and it may have some damaging impacts as well. It may make you irritable, right? If you're watching too little, on the other hand, then you may not be aware of what is happening around the world, right? So again, moderation is key. We talked about anger and watching television, but there are other things to consider. Food: are you eating too much or too little? What about clothes? Are you going too much or too little? Stationery, friends, playing, sleeping, sports, and exercise. So compare those things maybe with your friends as well, so that you can analyze and examine your life under this new concept of moderation. Make sure if you're doing too much of certain thing, or if you're actually on the extremes for any of these actions or behaviors, then maybe you need to rethink and reevaluate yourself and try to make sure that you can introduce moderation in it. So we talked about the opposite of we already talked about the opposite of moderation. In Arabic, the word is known as israf. There is another verse in the Holy Quran. It's actually in Surah Al-Araf, chapter number 7, verse number 31. And the ayah is, Ya bani Adam khudhu zinatakum inda kulli masjidin wa kulu washrabu wa la tusrifu innahu la yuhibbul musrifin. Again, the key word, which is la tusrifu, is here, and I'm going to translate now. O children of Adam, put on your adornment on every occasion of prayer, and eat and drink, but do not waste. Indeed, he does not like the wasteful. So very clear-cut statement here, end quote. Very clear emphasis, a very clear indication of how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala actually does not like people who are wasteful. And here talking about specific actions, talking about if you're eating and drinking, do not waste. He does not like people who are wasting food. And if someone is doing that, then obviously that person has danger of committing that sin of israf, right? So taking the example of food again, if a person puts too much food in his table in his plate, he may not be able to finish it all, and it would be considered as it may be considered as extra because he's not able to finish it. If a person buys too many clothes again, he may not wear some of them because it's too many, and that will also result in waste. So definitely remember these things. Remember this verse whenever you're buying clothes next time, if you're buying shoes, jackets, stationery, and food, right? You want to make sure that you only buy stuff that you really, really need. You want to make sure that you only put food on your plate when you know for sure that you will be able to finish it. If you don't know, then maybe it's better not to fill your table up because you fill your plate up because you don't want to be that person who is disliked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right. So again, the key message is moderation. While we're talking about it, I want to touch upon some of the concepts as well, like why moderation can sometimes be hard for people to practice, right? Number one reason is greed, right? The more you buy, for example, the more you'll want. Human beings by nature always want more. And a greedy person in particular will always be thinking about getting more and more stuff, right? Our sixth Imam, Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam, says, if the son of Adam were to possess two valleys of gold and silver, he would long for a third. Son of Adam, your stomach is but an ocean or a valley that cannot be filled with anything except dust, end quote. So again, a very insightful statement. Imam Jafar Sadiq alayhi salam is actually telling us that, human beings naturally are always looking for more, right? So you should be aware of it. You should identify this and make sure that you're not greedy. It basically means despite having plenty of gold and silver, man will still want something else and not realizing when he dies. And this is a short life. Then why is everyone looking to, get more and more things? Another thing is materialistic. Similar concept. When a person sees his happiness comes from things, right? This is very critical. If you think that your happiness is actually buried by possessing things, you're kind of materialistic, right? You don't want to extract happiness from things. Typically, people are constantly worried about taking care of their possessions, right? And they lose focus actually on performing good deeds and worshiping Allah and their interactions with people and helping and supporting other people. They're just too focused on possessing things and taking care of them. Let's say if it's their money, if it's their house, if it's their car, they try to extract happiness, draw happiness from these things. So that is known as being materialistic. It's good to be happy about your possessions and your blessings, but if you're too bogged down, you're just focusing, if you just have a very narrow-minded focus on those things and you don't care of anything else, then you're basically neglecting your duties towards others. You are neglecting your responsibility towards others. And you're losing focus on performing good deeds. So we talked about greed and materialistic people. They definitely find it very hard to practice moderation. So if you're aware of it, we can actually try to implement moderation in our life. But how can we, so we understand now why it's hard, but what are some of the ways that we can use to protect ourselves and ensure that our life has moderation, right? Well, number one is being content. That is one amazing way of being content. Or I might have said that this is a very important quality. Imam Ali, for example, said contentment is a river that never dries. Contentment is a river that never dries. So contentment basically means to be happy and satisfied with whatever we have been blessed with. Number two, striking a balance in all activities that you do will actually help you achieve moderation. So like we did this exercise before as well. We're talking about like if you're, talking about food, analyze yourself. Are you, uh, putting too much on your plate every time you go to a mosque or to an event or to a hotel? Are you ordering too much and then, leaving too much on your plate for it to be wasted? Consider that, consider striking a balance. Consider um, observing moderation, in food. Clothes. Are you buying too many clothes? Do you really need them? How often do you even wear them? Right? Consider those things when you're trying to specifically buy new things. And we've already talked about greed and materialism. Greed never, greed demands that people just continuously aim to buy more and more things. Materialistics is about drawing happiness from material things. So those two things, if we are aware of those two things as well, we can greatly enhance our capability to practice moderation. So Imam Ali, again, we've actually talked about two of the narrations by Imam Ali. He also emphasized like contentment, actually, which is like one way, a roadmap to achieving moderation. And Dua Kumal actually teaches us to ask Allah for contentment. So that this is like another way of making sure that we can actually get some support in practicing moderation. So in Dua Kumal, he teaches us to ask Allah, and he says, treat me with clemency and mercy, and make me pleased and contented with what you have allotted to me. So again, it's talking about being grateful. Again, it's talking about being satisfied with the blessings that you already have. And it's basically a dua to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he's teaching us that this is how you should ask Allah for contentment as well. If you have a blessing, be grateful about it, and you will be content about it as well. So, but here's a key and an interesting aspect though. Moderation needs to apply. We obviously we're trying to practice contentment, but moderation needs to be applied with contentment too, right? Because we said moderation should be applied in all the aspects of our life. Contentment is actually one of them as well. So if a person, for example, is too content, then he will never be able to work hard. He will not work hard to achieve more. He'll just be like, okay, I'm satisfied. I'm not going to do any more work. I'm not going to put in more effort. I'm done. And this will make him lazy and unproductive, right? So that is one extreme. On the other side, if a person has too little contentment, for example, he will never be satisfied. He will always want more, and this will lead to greed and excessiveness, which is also which is also the stage that we do not want, the extreme that we do not want to be in. So again, moderation needs to be applied with contentment too. There is another story about a person named Abdullah in the time of Rasulullah SAW. He once decided that he would fast every day and read the entire Quran during the night. Sometime later, he was actually married. But when he was married, he did not take much notice of his wife. He continued to, do his worship. And then Abdullah's father once asked Abdullah's wife, about her husband, and she replied, he's a very pious man. He never sleeps or talks to anyone. So he's so involved in fasting, in reading the Quran, that he does not sleep or nor talks to anyone, right? So Abdullah's father actually talked to Rasulullah that this is what's going on. And Rasulullah responded to his father, and he actually told Abdullah himself that he should not do that. He should fast sometimes and eat sometimes, and pray during the night and sleep as well. And then he actually said that your body has a claim on you, and so does your family. So basically, again, he's talking about moderation. You shouldn't be just, fasting every single day. It should be a balance. You should eat sometimes. Your body needs food. Your body uh, has a right on you that you need to fulfill. Again, if your family is being neglected because you're just praying all night, you're not able to sleep well, your body is unhealthy, and maybe it's making you irritable, and maybe it's damaging your relationships with your family. Those things should also be not done. So everything is needed to be done in moderation. Okay, so today we really talk about the concept of moderation in Islam. Uh, I think it's a good point to put a pin in there and kind of wrap up the discussion. Yesterday's topic was modesty and chastity, and we continue to extend that learning today with the concept of moderation in life. And we discussed how moderation means to avoid being on the extreme. So too much of something or too little of something. And we saw that Islam in Quran, in the Ahlul Bayt lives and in prophethoods and in Prophet's life, we've seen how they teach us to maintain a balanced lifestyle, right? In all aspects, not just food or worship or clothing, pretty much in all aspects of our lives. We also learn about how being excessive can lead to israf, which is extremely undesirable. And they can lead to they can lead to undesirable qualities such as materialism and greed. And finally, we talked about, okay, we know now that moderation is important and there's so much emphasis in the religion, but how do we adopt this? How do we make sure that this is part of our life? And then we said that one of the ways that we can do it is obviously analyze, different actions and behavior that you have, compare yourself with your peers, with your friends, with your family, and try to understand if there is israf or if you're actually lying on the extremes, and try to become aware and try to rectify, remediate that. Another thing that we discussed was being content, right? We discussed that if you're grateful with what you have, then this is one of the ways in which moderation can be achieved. All right, so I'll end here. Thank you so much for listening to me today as well. And I will see you tomorrow.